Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 20 of the 21 days of prayer. We're so glad that you've stuck with us along this journey, and I personally am excited to dive into the Word and into our time of prayer to see what God has for us today. Let's dive right in. Genesis 15, verse 1 through 3 says this. After this, the word of the Lord came to Abram in a vision. Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield, your very great reward. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me, since I remain childless, and the one who will inherit my estate is Eliezer of Damascus? And Abram said, You have given me no children, so a servant of my household will be my heir. Let me start off by saying that there is nothing wrong with the promise God has given you. Nor is there anything wrong with wanting the promise that God has gave you. God's promises are good and pure and powerful. Furthermore, let me add that I understand Abram is the father of my faith, and I wouldn't dream of painting him in a bad light. But with that being said, I don't really like Abram's attitude in this passage. God gives him this beautiful message that should really mean the world to Abram. God tells him, do not be afraid. I am your shield. I am your very great reward. And what's Abram's response to this? What can you give me? I think sometimes we prioritize the promise over the reward. I've been married for 3 years, and by no means am I a marriage expert, but I do know this, that when I was preparing to propose, my head was filled with all the amazing things that came alongside of being married. I was getting married to a wonderful cook, so I was excited for the food that I'd be eating for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Right? I was gaining a confidant with who I could share my deepest secrets with. I was gaining a friend who would walk with me during the darkest seasons of my life, and I was getting married to a homeschooler so I could finally hold her hand. Like, there were plenty of promises to get excited about. But that's not the reason I got married. I got married so that I could have a relationship with the woman that I loved. See, Christ has promised to give and do extraordinary things for you. He's promised to give you strength and wisdom out of his love. He's promised to complete the good work that he's started. He's promised to give you a peace that passes all understanding. To some of you, he's promised children. To some of you, he's promised healing. And I've even got my own promise that I'm waiting on. But these are not the reward. Although they're beautiful and wonderful promises, your reward is the one who gives the promises. The reward is communion with God. This is why Moses stands in defiance of entering the promised land when God tells him that his presence will not follow. Because Moses understands what I believe God wants to teach us today, that the promise is no good without the promise giver. Consider for a moment what good it would have done the blind man to receive his sight but be unable to see Jesus. Let us be a people who are satisfied with God and God alone. In your time of prayer, I'd like you to consider these 3 things. Have you desired the promise more than you've desired the promise giver? I'd like you to give thanks to Christ, who has afforded to us a relationship with God. And I'd like you to pray for those with whom you'd wish to share in this reward. Let's spend the remainder of this hour in prayer.